Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of 6 for 6. I'm your host, Trevor Williams. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of 6 for 6. As you can see, the camera quality is slightly different. I'm using an older laptop. The one that I normally has been using has just been having issues with recording this episode. So I switched over. So that's why the quality is a little bit on the down low. But hey, we're going to get you your episode out so you can be ready for Valentine's Day weekend. Without further ado, let's get the show on the road, ladies and gents. First up, overall, our last record, 4-2. Great record, if you ask me. Nice trajectory, getting over that 500, and keep adding this 4-for-2 record. And as we keep doing that, we'll get more and more in the win column. You know what that means, ladies and gentlemen? We're back at 500 again. 15 wins and 15 losses. So we're doing pretty solid for season 5, getting through all that stuff. Next week, we have another episode of 6 for 6, and then we'll be on a 2-week short break because I got personal things to take care of, and then we'll be back shortly after that. I mean, I could do stuff to preload and all that stuff, but I'm just going to enjoy my time that I have off, and then we'll be back with another round of 6 for 6. But we'll go in more detail in next week's episode about that. In the 6th slot, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about North Carolina, number 21 in the nation, versus Duke, number 11 in the nation. Women's college basketball, February 15th, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific time on ABC. Ladies and gentlemen, North Carolina this year for the women's team has a 20-5 record with a 9-3 record in the ACC. However, Duke, on the other hand, is 18-6 with a 13-0 ACC record. I like how dominant that this Duke's women's basketball team's been playing in the ACC. Good, strong schedule that they've been taking care of business. No, there's some few rocky stuff out of conference, but it's definitely good across the board. If we're looking at some of their stat lines, ladies and gentlemen, you have them both averaging about 75 points a game. The points against around about 58 points given up between both squads. For field goal percentages, relatively close. North Carolina has 46. Duke has 45. And rebounds go to Duke with 41, with North Carolina with 38, almost 39. Assists goes to Duke with almost 18 assists compared to North Carolina 16. Block party goes to Duke with 6, and North Carolina's 3.5. Then you followed up with Duke's almost 9.5 compared to North Carolina's 10 steals per game on average. So all across the board, it's looking pretty good on the stat sheet, what the team's got going on. But I like Duke to take care of business in this one, as they've just been completely dominant in the ACC right now. And I think they're going to keep that trend going. So you can catch number 21 North Carolina versus number 11 Duke women's college basketball, February 25th, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time on ABC. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we are going into the 5th slot, ladies and gentlemen. We got Ole Miss, number 14 in the nation, versus Kentucky, number 18 in the nation in women's college basketball, February 15th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time on the SEC Network. Ole Miss, ladies and gentlemen, is 19-5 with a 6-3 record in the SEC. Kentucky's been struggling in the SEC with 5-6 as their overall record in the SEC. Overall record this season is 18-7. So overall record looks relatively similar, if not closer to Ole Miss. But in the SEC, it's a tale of two different stories. The last 5 games, a common opponent that they both shared was Georgia and Vanderbilt. When you look at the Georgia game, they both ended up losing to Georgia, but Ole Miss got obliterated, best way to describe it, 82-59 compared to Kentucky's 72-67. So that's why I kind of like Kentucky in this matchup. Even though they lost to Vanderbilt by 1, 84-83, and Ole Miss won 83-75. So it's going to be a very close game, very interesting. It just depends on who shoots better during that game, ladies and gentlemen. But Ole Miss is average about 77.5 compared to Kentucky's 6.6 points against are relatively same, almost 59 for Kentucky compared to Ole Miss's 57. Field goal percentage from the field, ladies and gentlemen, is about 45. Rebounds about the same with 41. Assists go to Kentucky with 17.4 compared to 14.4. Block party goes to Kentucky with 6.8 over 4.9. And the steals go to Ole Miss with an 8.8 compared to 6 steals per game for Kentucky. I think Kentucky is going to try to snap their SEC string of bad lucks and turn it around, but it's going to be a very tall task for this ladies Wildcats team. So give me Kentucky to find a way to pull up the upset in this one, even though they're slightly favored in the ESPN percentage, but you never know in basketball, just depending on how the teams go. So you can catch number 14 Ole Miss versus number 18 Kentucky women's college basketball, February 15th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time on the SEC Network. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, in the fourth slot, we got Kansas, number 9 in the nation, versus Iowa, number 5 in the nation. Men's college basketball, February 14th, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time on ABC. Kansas, ladies and gentlemen, is 19-5 for their overall record with a 9-2 Big 12 record. Iowa State 21-3 with an 8-3 Big 12 record, looking very solid across the board. I mean, their last common opponents that they ended up sharing was Kansas State, with Kansas winning 86-62 compared to Iowa State's big margin of victory of 95-61. So as you can see, Iowa State likes to put up points, and that kind of goes into their points per game, almost about 85 points a game compared to Kansas's 78. Points against goes for Iowa's favor with a almost 65 compared to Kansas 68. From the field, Iowa State shoots better with a 51 percentage from the field compared to Kansas's percentage from the field is 48. Rebounds go to Kansas with 39 compared to Iowa State's 36, almost 37. Assists goes to Iowa State with almost 18.5 compared to Kansas 15. Block party goes to Kansas with 6.2 over 3. And then the steals, the Stefty of Iowa State, 99.1 compared to 5.5. If I said 91 steals, that's just like the other team's just not even scoring. That's just how bad that would be. But I like Iowa State to take care of business in this one. You can catch number 9 Kansas versus number 5 Iowa State men's college basketball, February 14th, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time on ABC. Next up, in the third slot, ladies and gentlemen, we got West Virginia Country Roads for the Lady Mountaineers, number 19 in the nation, versus TCU, who's number 17 in the nation. Women's college basketball, February 15th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time on FS1. Can the Lady Mountaineers get out of the wilderness against TCU and the Hypnotoads of the TCU Horned Frogs in this scenario? The Hypnotoads will find their way to hypnotize the Lady Mountaineers and steer them off course in a very tense game. But the Lady Mountaineers will stay on course and try to find a way to hang on. But the power of the Toad shall overcome and take them out of action. So give me, ladies and gentlemen, TCU to win this matchup in a close game with their overall records, with West Virginia being 20-5 compared to TCU's 21-4. Big 12 conference record about 10-3 for West Virginia, and TCU is 9-3 in the Big 12 record as well. Common opponent that they have is Colorado. West Virginia took care of business with a 61-55 victory. However, TCU kind of lost by 1.80-79. As you can see, TCU's defense can kind of be all over the place depending on how much what goes on. They kind of give up a lot of points, but it just depends on the night that they end up having. So West Virginia's points per game, ladies and gentlemen, about 77 compared to TCU's 80. Points against goes to TCU with 55 compared to West Virginia's 59. From the field, TCU takes the field with a 49% from the field compared to West Virginia's 45. Rebounds go to TCU with 41, ladies and gentlemen, compared to West Virginia's 36. Assists goes to TCU with 18.4 compared to West Virginia's 15 assists per game. Block party goes to TCU with 5.5 compared to West Virginia's 2.5. And then steals, very thefty team of West Virginia, about 12 steals a game compared to TCU's 7.6. I like TCU in this matchup, so give me this victory in the scenario. West Virginia, number 19 in the nation, versus TCU, number 17 in the nation. Women's college basketball, February 15th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time on FS1. And I have TCU winning it. And the fifth slot, ladies and gentlemen, we got number 13 in the nation, Michigan State, versus number 7 in the nation, Michigan. Women's college basketball, February 15th, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time on FS1, ladies and gentlemen. What a matchup we have here. We saw what happened the last time these two teams met. It went into overtime, and Michigan got the victory at Michigan State, 94-91. And I think that's going to kind of hold true yet again between these two teams as they go up against each other, this time in Michigan. And I like Michigan to win this one based on what we saw on the last style play, how they played against each other. However, let's give you a quick reminder of Michigan State's 20-4 record with a 9-4 Big Ten record, with Michigan's 20-4 record with a 11-2 Big Ten record as well, ladies and gentlemen. Looking at the stat line, points per game, kind of relatively close. Michigan edges out to 87 points per game compared to Michigan State's 85. Points against goes to Michigan with 62.3 compared to Michigan State's 63. From the field, Michigan State takes that column with a 49% from the field compared to Michigan's 48. Rebounds is 41 to Michigan State's 36.5. From the assists, go to Michigan State with 18.5 to Michigan 17. Block party, ladies and gentlemen, goes to Michigan State with 4.2 compared to Michigan's 3.7. And then it steals per game kind of averages out to 12 steals a game. So definitely going to be something interesting to see how that ends up shaking out for both of these two squads. But I like Michigan to take care of business and, if not, winning it. Good way to start off going into, post Valentine's Day. Nothing is much more than tough love during a rivalry matchup around Valentine's Day. So you can get to number 13, Michigan State versus number 7, Michigan women's college basketball, February 15th, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time on FS1. And I have Michigan winning it. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, the game of the week. Number 3, the third team in the nation, South Carolina versus LSU, number 6 in the nation, women's college basketball, February 14th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time on ABC. What a matchup we got here in the SEC. You can't write a storybook script in this right now, with South Carolina being 24-2 with a 10-1 SEC record compared to LSU's 22 wins and 3 losses with an 8-3 SEC record thus far. Even though the ESPN predictor has LSU winning it with a 53.8% chance of it win compared to South Carolina's 46.2% chance to win. South Carolina has just been taking care of business, taking names in that scenario. Both teams like to score a lot of points. When you look at the Auburn common opponent, LSU scored 77 compared to 44 against Auburn. When South Carolina played, it was 81-51. As you can see, both teams had about a 30-point margin of victory when they played Auburn. So it's definitely going to be one of those games where defense is going to be a tale of two games, but it's how you rebound, how you shoot from the field that day will kind of drive this discussion. But let's break down the stats for you all today. We got South Carolina with 88 points per game compared to LSU's about 97 points per game. And then you go into the points against. LSU loses this category with 58 compared to South Carolina's 56. From the field, both schools are averaging about 52% from the field. Rebounds go to LSU with about 49 compared to South Carolina's 43. Assists goes to 19 compared to South Carolina's 18.3. The block party goes to South Carolina with 6.2 compared to LSU's 5.2. And to round things out on the steals, LSU's a more steely team. They go with 12.5 compared to South Carolina's 10. So it's definitely going to be an interesting matchup for sure. But I think South Carolina will find a way to edge this one out in a very close fashion. I don't think we're going to have a disappointing game on Valentine's Day, ladies and gentlemen. So you can catch number 3 in the nation, South Carolina versus number 6 LSU women's college basketball, February 14th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time on ABC. Let's do a quick recap, and we'll get you on out of here so you can enjoy these games on Valentine's Day and Valentine's Day on the post Valentine's Day games. And the 6th slot, ladies and gentlemen, number 21 in the nation, North Carolina versus number 11, Duke women's college basketball, February 15th, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time on ABC. And the 5th slot, we have, and for that one, I have Duke winning this matchup. In the 5th slot, we have Ole Miss, number 14 in the nation, versus Kentucky, number 18 in the nation, women's college basketball, February 15th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time on the SEC Network. And I have Kentucky winning this matchup. In the 4th slot, we have number 9 Kansas versus number 5 Iowa State men's college basketball, February 14th, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time on ABC. And I have Iowa State winning this matchup. And the 3rd slot, we have West Virginia, number 19 in the nation, versus TCU, number 17 in the nation, women's college basketball, February 15th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time on FS1, and I have TCU winning it. And the 2nd slot, we have Michigan State, number 13 in the nation, versus Michigan, number 7 in the nation, women's college basketball, February 15th, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time on FS1, and I have Michigan winning it. And then to cap us off, ladies and gentlemen, the game of the week, South Carolina, number 3 in the nation, versus LSU, number 6 in the nation, women's college basketball, February 14th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time on ABC. And I have South Carolina winning this matchup. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, we got a lot of great games going on here. But like I said, our last record, 4-2. Hopefully we get another 5-1 or another 4-2 to help us out in our win columns and keeping our losses at bay. And like I said, our overall record this season so far is 15-15. So we're looking at 500, but hopefully we continue more wins out of this, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of 6 for 6, and we'll catch you on for another edition of 6 for 6. So long for now. Bye-bye.